Robert served his 90 days, came home and built a quiet life, a paid-off house, some savings, a Social Security check. So when he hears the VA pays a wartime veteran $2,431 a month, he waves it off. That's for the wounded and the broke, not him. Over 10 years, that's $291,000 funded and waiting, and surely the VA would tell him if he qualified. But it reaches a cook who never left Kansas and the widow of a clerk who died decades after his service. It reaches a veteran pulling in $3,000 a month, and the VA counts his income as zero. But the VA never sends that letter. So the people it was built for rule themselves out, and $250,000 sits unclaimed, waiting on a form nobody tells them to file. I'm Uncle Bill, and in this video, I'll show Robert and his wife Linda how a veteran who never saw combat collects $2,431 a month. I walk him through the 3 gates that scare people off: wartime service, medical need, the money limit. By the end, you'll see a $3,000 income count as zero, a $400,000 house count for nothing, and the one document behind every yes or no. Robert figures he already knows every check the VA sends. So when Uncle Bill says aid and attendance, he waves it off. Money for the badly wounded. It's got nothing to do with combat, Robert. It's about who needs a hand getting through the day. It's not a check for being a veteran, it's an add-on to the VA pension for people who need help with ordinary daily life. The aid, the assisted living room, the nursing home for wartime veterans and their surviving spouses who can't manage alone. It only switches on the day a normal morning starts costing real money. But the reason people fight so hard for it isn't the care it covers, it's the size of the check attached to it. It's a standing VA pension benefit, funded and waiting, built for the most ordinary thing there is: getting older and needing help. Not for the battlefield, for the bathroom and the kitchen. And Robert sees it. This was never the Wounded Warrior Fund. It was the You Got Old and Need Help Fund. But the reason people fight so hard to get it isn't the care it covers, it's the size of the check attached to it. Robert asks the only question that matters to him. Fine, how much are we even talking about? Uncle Bill writes one number on the napkin: $2,431 a month. That's the 2026 maximum for a single wartime veteran. More than a lot of people's whole Social Security check. The basic VA pension, without aid and attendance, tops out around $1,191. So aid and attendance itself is the gap. Roughly $1,240 extra every month stacked on top. Robert starts the yearly math and stalls. Uncle Bill does it for him. $29,172 a year. But stretch that across the way a real retirement runs, and it stops sounding like a benefit and starts sounding like an inheritance. Over 10 years, that's more than $291,000. Money the VA has already set aside for veterans who qualify. It's not a lottery or a lump sum. It's a check for life, budgeted and waiting for the claim to show up. And Linda goes quiet. That's the number that pays for the care they've been dreading every month without draining their savings. But the group that misses out on this money the most isn't veterans at all, it's the people they leave behind. Linda finally asks the thing she's been holding. And when Robert's gone, I'm on my own, right? Uncle Bill, that's exactly where most people get it wrong. When a wartime veteran passes, the surviving spouse can claim the same pension with aid and attendance, up to $1,318 a month in 2026. About $15,816 a year. Same benefit at the survivor's rate. The check follows the household instead of dying with the veteran. Everyone pictures it the same way. The veteran has to die of a war injury before the widow sees a dime. But the veteran's death doesn't have to be connected to his service in any way. He could have come home, worked 40 years at a civilian job, and died of something completely ordinary, and the spouse still qualifies. This is the check that reaches the 82-year-old widow of a supply clerk who never left Texas, decades after his service ended. And Linda sees it, the thing she feared most, left with the care bills and no income, is exactly what this was built to catch. But before anyone collects a single dollar, they have to clear the first gate. And it's the one word that scares the most people off. Uncle Bill. First gate is your service. Narrower than it sounds and a lot looser than you fear. The requirement, 90 days of active duty, with at least one of those days falling inside a period the VA officially calls wartime. Not years, not a whole combat tour, 90 days of active duty and one of them landing in the right window. Robert braces. He's sure wartime is exactly where he washes out because he never saw a war. It's that single word that talks more veterans out of filing than any other line on the form. But the whole gate hangs on that one word, wartime. And that's exactly where Robert's confidence drains out. To him, wartime means combat, deployment, a war he was in, and by that measure, he's already disqualified himself. Uncle Bill lets the wall stand a moment. Yes, one of your 90 days has to land in a wartime period. That part is real, so Robert pencils himself out on the very first gate, certain he was never a wartime anything, but service is only the first gate. The second one asks a harder question, whether you even need this benefit at all. Uncle Bill leans in. It's not about what's wrong with you on paper, Robert. It's about your morning. It comes down to 5 activities of daily living. Bathing, dressing, eating, using the bathroom, and transferring, getting in and out of a bed or a chair. Need help with at least 2 of those 5 and you meet the medical test. Or you're bedridden, or your eyesight has failed past a certain point. Either one counts on its own. Robert assumes it takes a dramatic diagnosis, a stroke, a terminal illness to qualify at all. But it isn't about the name of a disease, it's about which parts of an ordinary day you can no longer do alone. A man who can't button a shirt or get in the shower safely meets it. A man with a frightening diagnosis who still dresses himself may not. The VA is measuring the morning, not the medical chart. And Linda sees it land. This isn't for the dying, it's for the day getting dressed becomes a 2-person job. But even clearing service and medical need, most people hit the third gate and stop cold, the money test. One number, a net worth limit. In 2026, around $155,356. Robert reads it the way it's designed to be misread. So it's welfare for people with nothing. That's not us. He owns his home, gets a decent social security check, keeps some savings, and the conclusion writes itself. Too much to qualify. Linda agrees. Everything they spent 40 years building now looks like the reason they're locked out. But that wall isn't standing where the VA put it, it's standing where Robert put it, before he's read a single line of the actual math. That line, $155,356, sits right on top of their retirement, the house, the savings, the monthly check, and it looks like a stop sign. So Robert does what almost everyone does. He looks at his own life and rules himself out on the money before anyone runs a number. And Uncle Bill just watches him do it, because this is the exact spot where the most people quietly give up. But that wall isn't built by the VA's rules, it's built by 2 assumptions people make before they ever fill out a form. Uncle Bill names the thoughts that close the file before it's ever opened. Robert said both of them out loud in the last 10 minutes without even noticing. Assumption 1, my income, my house, my savings put me over the line. I'm too comfortable to qualify. Assumption 2, I never saw combat, never deployed, never got wounded. This was never meant for me. 2 glances at his own life, the bank statement, and the service record, and Robert's already decided the answer is no. But both of those are things Robert believes, not things the VA's rules actually say. And the VA, by design, never corrects him. No letter, no call, no ad. The silence lets both assumptions stand. This is why a $250,000 benefit sits unclaimed. Not because people fail the test, but because they never take it. Robert has now locked himself out on both counts. The exact belief the next half of this video takes apart, brick by brick. But both of those assumptions are wrong, and the first one falls apart the moment you learn what that first word actually means. Uncle Bill circles back to the word that stopped Robert cold, wartime. It's a set of dates, Robert, not a battlefield. The benefit never asks whether you saw combat, deployed overseas, or were ever wounded. It asks one thing. Were you on active duty during a recognized wartime period? A cook at a base in Kansas, a clerk pushing paperwork in California, a mechanic in Georgia who never left the country. But every one of them is a wartime veteran, exactly as much as the man who was overseas, as long as the dates line up. The war is the calendar, not the country you were standing in. Serve during the window and you've cleared the gate. And Robert, the veteran who counted himself out on I never saw combat, just watched his first lock fall off. The medal on the wall was never the requirement. The dates on the discharge paper were. But which dates count is where this gets bigger than almost anyone realizes because one of those windows never actually closed. Uncle Bill counts them off. World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and then the one nobody expects. The Gulf War era, which opened August 2nd, 1990, and was never officially declared over. It's still running today. The door propped open in 1990 was never shut. That means anyone who served even one day of active duty from 1990 through right now is a wartime veteran in the VA's eyes. Robert had assumed Gulf War meant Desert Storm, a specific year, a specific fight. But it's not a war you had to be in, it's a window that's been open for over 30 years and counting. A logistics specialist who served in 2010 and never left a stateside base clears the wartime gate today. The 2012 mechanic, the 2005 clerk, the 1998 supply sergeant, all wartime veterans, not one of them ever near a war. For anyone who served since 1990, that first gate was never a gate at all. But there's one group that assumes none of this could possibly apply to them, and they're often wrong too. Robert's brother-in-law was a weekend guardsman. No way he counts, Robert says. Uncle Bill, he can, but only through the right kind of duty. National Guard and Reserve members can meet the service requirement, but weekend drills and annual 2-week training on their own don't count toward it. Robert assumes part-time service is part-time service in or out, no gray area. But the moment that counts is the day a guardsman or reservist is called up on federal active duty orders during a wartime period. Activated inside one of those windows, even if he never left the state, and the service gate is met. It's not the uniform or the years, it's whether federal orders ever put you on active duty inside the window. And Robert's brother-in-law, activated stateside in 2004, turns out to qualify the exact man everyone waves off. But service was only the first assumption. The bigger one, I make too much, falls apart for a reason almost nobody knows. Uncle Bill leans in. The VA doesn't count your income the way you do. Before it compares a single dollar to any limit, it subtracts your unreimbursed medical and care costs from what you bring in. In-home aids, assisted living, a nursing home, the big costs come off the top first. So do Medicare premiums, Medigap policies, prescription copays, even wheelchairs and walkers. Robert always pictured income as the number on his Social Security letter. Full stop. But for the VA, income isn't what lands in your account, it's what's left after your care is paid for. And for anyone actually paying for care, that leftover number is tiny. The care eats the income before the VA ever sees it. The check that looked way too big to qualify shrinks to almost nothing the second care costs come off it. And Linda gets it first. The very bills they were terrified of are the thing that drops them under the line. But a rule like that only really lands when you watch it run on a real set of numbers. Uncle Bill puts a man on the table. $3,000 a month coming in, $36,000 a year. Robert, that's way too much. He's out. Uncle Bill, watch. The man lives in an assisted living facility that costs $4,500 a month. The VA subtracts the care cost from the income. $3,000 minus $4,500. Robert starts to see it. The bill is bigger than the check. But when the care costs more than the income, the math lands below zero. And anything below zero, the VA simply counts as zero. On paper, the man looked well over the line. For this benefit, his countable income is nothing, and he qualifies. So the veteran everyone, including himself, wrote off as too comfortable is approved. The bigger your care bill, the more of your income disappears, the more help you need, the better you fit. But income was only half of the I have too much wall. The other half, everything you own, falls just as fast. Robert braces one more time. The $400,000 house alone puts us out. Uncle Bill, your house isn't even in the math. That $155,356 limit leaves out your primary home at any value, whether it's worth $200,000 or $1 million. It leaves out one vehicle and your furniture and personal belongings. Robert had been counting the house, the car, all of it, the way anyone would. But the home and the car simply vanished from the calculation. They were never on the VA's side of the ledger. A veteran in a $400,000 house with a $30,000 car and $100,000 in savings has a countable net worth of $100,000. The home and the car drop out of the math, leaving him sitting comfortably under that $155,356 line. And Linda realizes the very thing that made them feel too well off, the paid-off house, was never counted at all. But once both of those walls are gone, a strange truth comes into focus about who this benefit was actually designed for. Uncle Bill lines up everything they've knocked down and lets Robert see the whole picture at once. Every wall Robert built in the first half just fell. The combat wall, the income wall, the house wall. The VA designed this benefit precisely for the people who assume they're too well off to qualify. Veterans and spouses whose care costs eat their income, who own a home, who never fired a shot. Robert had ruled himself out 3 separate times: on combat, on income, on the house. But every single reason he ruled himself out was actually a reason he'd be approved. The service was never combat. The income test forgives care costs. The home never counted. The people who look most disqualified are the exact people it was built for. And the enigma finally opens. The only real gate ever left standing isn't combat or money. It's the paperwork. But that paperwork has one document buried inside it that decides more approvals than everything else combined. Robert expects the make or break to be some hidden eligibility rule. Uncle Bill. It's a doctor's note. The form itself is VA Form 21-2680, but the piece that makes or breaks the claim is the physician's statement inside it. A vague note, patient is elderly and needs assistance, is exactly what gets claims denied or sent back for more. The VA can't approve what the doctor won't spell out. Robert figures any doctor's signature is a doctor's signature. But the note that gets approved names the exact activities, the medical reason, and how often down to the detail. Needs help bathing because of arthritis in both shoulders. Help dressing because buttons and zippers are impossible. Supervision at the stove for safety. That's the note that gets paid. Specific gets paid, vague gets denied. The same veteran, same condition, walks away with a yes or a no, depending entirely on how the doctor filled one page. But the medical statement is only one of the documents, and the others trip people up in their own quiet way. Uncle Bill. The doctor's note gets you in the door. These are what hold the door open. The claim also stands on the DD-214. The discharge record proving your service dates and character of discharge. If it's lost, you request a replacement from the National Personnel Records Center at archives.gov/veterans. It can take weeks, so start early. Then the financial paper, your Social Security award letter, pension and bank statements, and receipts for every medical cost you pay out of pocket. Robert assumed the doctor's note was the whole application. But a missing DD-214 or a shoebox with no receipts stalls a claim just as dead as a weak medical note. A surviving spouse adds 2 more: the veteran's death certificate and the marriage certificate. Everyone is a spot where a claim gets stuck, not denied, just parked, waiting on one missing page. And Linda starts a folder that night. The discharge paper, the award letter, the receipts, so nothing parks their claim for months. But even a complete file runs into the same fear that stops people from filing at all. Robert's real fear comes out. How long and who do I even trust with all this? Uncle Bill. A complete application generally runs 3 to 6 months. An incomplete one can stretch past 12, the VA sends it back, you gather more, and the clock restarts from the beginning. That's why the medical statement has to be strong on day 1, not fixed on month 9. Robert assumes he'll have to hire somebody expensive to get it right. But you never have to pay a dime to file. The best help for this is free. Accredited representatives at the American Legion, the VFW, and the DAV do the whole thing for free. Meanwhile, private companies charge $2,000 to $5,000 for the same work, and some of them are outright scams. The free rep down at the VFW hall knows this form better than the company charging you $5,000 for it. But even a claim that comes back denied isn't the end of the road, and believing that it is may be the most expensive mistake of all. Robert's last fear. And if they just say no? Uncle Bill. A denial gives you 1 full year to respond, and a no is rarely a final no. 3 routes back: a supplemental claim with new evidence, a higher level review by a more senior reviewer, or a board appeal before a veterans law judge. And the most common denial reasons all have a fix. Robert assumed a denial meant the door slammed shut for good. But a vague medical statement gets rewritten. A net worth no gets rechecked for the home and care cost deductions the VA may have missed, and shaky service dates get confirmed against your full record. Even an other than honorable discharge can still be reviewed. A first pass no is not the end of the line. The ones who hear about aid and attendance in time file and collect. The ones who don't spend down everything or pass away, leaving $250,000 sitting unclaimed. The money was never locked away by the rules, only by the assumptions, and the letter the VA never sends.